Now, my name's Ryan. I'm one of the pastors here on staff. If we haven't met, I'd love to meet you, maybe hear how you made your way to Grace today. And let me tell you about something that's coming up here next weekend that is important, especially if you're a member. We're going to be voting on our budget next week, and I want to make sure that you can hear about that and come out to that again, especially if you're a member. If you are just curious about kind of what's happening in the life of the church, make sure to come out to that as well, and you're welcome to do that. That's our annual budget meeting, of course, next weekend right after this service. And then, of course, this is a big weekend because this is a dual holiday that's happening right now today. We've got Juneteenth that is happening as we look back on, you can clap for that. It's a big deal. Look back on the freeing of slaves, and now we have all free people. Big deal, and we want to celebrate that. We also, of course, have Father's Day. And I realize that today can be a difficult day for some. Even some of you walked in and told me that. We heard that in some of the stories, that losing dad is a big deal and leaves a huge hole. And so I know that some of us come into Father's Day, we're feeling that. We're feeling the disconnect from dad. Maybe there's distance or difficulty in that relationship. And I know that that's hard for many of us. And I know that if you are a dad, if you are an adoptive dad or a stepdad or a soon-to-be dad, or you just kind of fill the role of fathering in someone's life, that you work hard at staying engaged and you work hard at being consistent and you keep showing up. And the work of showing up and being dad in whatever form or fashion that works out in the life of the people that you invest in, I need you to hear today that work is enormously important. That work matters, and it matters deeply for your kids or your stepkids or the people you think of as kids in your life, or at least people who think of you as dad. If you didn't do that invisible work of fathering, there would be a massive gap in someone's life and in their heart, and there would be a hole in many ways in that person. So thank you for being dad, for investing deeply, for being a man and stepping in to fill the gap that's needed in that child's life. I just want to take a minute and to pray for us and to say thanks to God for the dads here in the room. Lord, thank you today. Thanks, God, for the freedom that we are all offered, that there's not oppression that's happening in a legal way, like we looked back here on Juneteenth, and we celebrate massive progress and accomplishment that way. God, I want to say thank you today for the dads in the room. Thanks for their contribution and their steady hand. God, thanks for their intentionality, for their wisdom, for the love that they have, the affection they have for their kids. God, strengthen them, empower them, help them, God, to be the men that you've called them to be. I pray for all of us, Lord, who are in the room and we're hurting. God, give mercy, give comfort for those who are grieving. Be our Father, Lord, in the midst of all of that, and help us. Whether that's to be the fathers you've called us to be, or to navigate the difficulty of being a child without dad in the picture in the way that we wish they were today. Be with us here and now, Lord. Open our hearts and minds to your word as we move into the conversation that you've called us to now. It's in Christ we pray. Amen. So we've been in a series now for the last whole bunch of weeks now. We're wrapping this series up actually today, and it's been all about joy. The path to joy and how we find joy, and it's been an important journey, I think, it's definitely been an important journey for me. Hopefully it's been helpful to you, and if you've just kind of jumping into the conversation, you can get caught up online if you want to do that, YouTube, go to our website, whatever, and you can watch those online. But we've really been looking into some big questions about what is worth chasing, what's worth having in the chase of happiness and joy. We kind of said that happiness is really kind of a bad road to be on. It just kind of doesn't work. Because really, I have to have control of my circumstances on an ongoing basis to have happiness. And that's really not possible. And so we kind of just said that's not really a good idea to chase happiness in the way that we typically think of it. However, there's an awesome alternative, and that alternative is joy. Joy is something that can be had really no matter where I find myself in life. Joy can be experienced even in the midst of pain, in the midst of difficulty or discouragement. Joy can be found in really any physical circumstance. And sometimes it's had through tears, but it's always available, and God creates joy, and he longs to give us joy. And that's part of what he wants for his children, is to live in and to experience joy as we live life with Jesus. And that's what we've been looking at, and we've been really setting up shop in this book of the Bible, Philippians. It's really just a letter that a leader in the early church wrote to a church that he helped start, and he was writing it from jail. And so what we've been doing is watching Paul. This guy's name is Paul, and Paul would write from jail, and he somehow models for us how to have joy in the midst of this awful circumstance where injustice is played out, and he's certainly suffering major limitations because he's wrapped up in jail when he would much rather be doing different things. And we learned a ton from him. And this last lesson we're going to pick up from him today is a profound one, and it's kind of a part two from our conversation last week. So if you just are jumping in with us and didn't get to catch last week's conversation, I highly recommend, if anything, catch that one. And I think it'll be really, really important. And what we're going to do today is see that the fruit of last week's conversation leads to this one. And this conversation is really going to be wrapped around contentment. Contentment. And right, if I'm going to have joy, there's going to be like a constellation of other experiences of life that are probably going to be with that, like peace, which we talked about. Contentment is going to be in there, right? I'm going to love. I'm going to have all these different pieces that come as almost a package deal. And I want to start to understand the way of joy, the path of joy, has all of these elements with it, which is all stuff we kind of want. We don't always know that we want it, but we actually do. And Paul's going to show us something that he would call the secret of contentment, and it's actually really profound when we start to get our head around it. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to be in Philippians chapter 4. If you have a Bible, go ahead and open to Philippians chapter 4, starting in verse 10. If you don't have a Bible and you would like one, we would love for you to grab one from underneath the chairs there, take that home with you. We'd make that our gift to you and love for you to have a copy of the Bible on your own. Here's what Paul says in Philippians 4. He says in 10, he says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. He says, I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. Let me just pause there for a second. Here's what's going on. Paul gives us a little bit of insight as to why he wrote this letter. So he's writing this letter to this church. This church has supplied for him a financial gift to support his ministry. They showed concern for him. And he's actually writing to say thank you for their support of him financially and their support of him in ministry so that he can continue to move forward the gospel in a powerful way. And that's a big piece of why he's writing. He says, right, I greatly rejoiced in the Lord. Thank God that you were concerned for me and you made that concern show up again. And then he goes into this next sentence, one or two down. He says, I'm not saying this because I'm in need. I'm not saying this because I'm in need. He says, I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. Paul starts to clarify for us that this idea that what he determines as a need is probably pretty different than what we might determine as a need. He's going to talk about a slice of life that we often spend a lot of time thinking about and operating in. Right? When we think about our lives, we tend to think of, I'm just going to put a box right here. We tend to think of this box right here. This is the stuff. We're going to put a blank right here. there's usually something in our lives that we think that we kind of need in order to be okay. I'm not talking about the actual needs that we have, like air, right, and water and sleep, like human functional needs. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about I need a girlfriend or boyfriend to be okay. That kind of need, right? Paul's he's gonna begin to differentiate for us, and he's gonna show us that there's a subset of life that we tend to think that we need things in. If I were to get that goal accomplished, if I got what I really wanted, then I would be okay. I would be happy. I would have joy. I would have something. What Paul's saying is, what you guys did for me, that wasn't a need, right? There are real legitimate needs that exist. That's not what Paul's talking about. He's saying, what you guys did for me was awesome, and I'm grateful for it. I didn't need it, but I'm glad you did it. When we start to think about these types of pieces that go into this box, what's fascinating to me in this conversation is that we tend to put enormous amounts of pressure on whatever would be the answer to this question. If I were to get this, then my life would be okay. I would be okay. I would find fulfillment. And what Paul's saying here is he's saying, I've learned to be content with or without this box being filled. I've learned how to be content if I get what I want or if I don't get what I want. He goes on, he says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned, and here's the phrase, I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. He says, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all things through him who gives me strength. And probably this is a verse that is familiar to us, right? I can do all things through him who gives me strength. We've probably heard that. You probably see that on a coffee mug. You probably see that on a T-shirt or a gym somewhere. I can bench press 300 pounds. I can do all things through him who gives me, right? Here's the actual context of the verse. Is Paul is saying, whatever situation I find myself in, right? If I eat as much as I want or if I barely have enough to eat, right? If I have a lot or if I have just a very, very little, I've learned to be content in that whole area. Whether I get my box filled or not, I've learned how to be content in any and every situation. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And what Paul begins to open up for us and unlock for us is something that I think is really surprising. In our culture, this is a very surprising thing. Because what we tend to hear on a regular basis, if you tune into anything where you're receiving information, you're basically gonna hear, you need to get a new answer. You need to get this answer over and over and over again. If you have a car, you need a new car. If you have a TV, you need a bigger TV. If you have this house, you need a different house. Right? And if you had that answered over and over and over with new stuff, then you would be content. And we're hearing that message over and over and over again, right? It's just kind of what it is. So you and I are inundated a little bit with that message over and over and over. And here's the thing that's surprising is this. The ability to be content in any situation gives a person a surprising freedom. Surprising freedom. If I don't need the next thing, if I don't need it, quote unquote, air quotes, right? Need it. If I don't need the thing you're selling, I might want it, I might want to enjoy it, but I don't need it. What happens is that allows me the freedom to be where God is, to be doing what God's asking me to do, and to be the person that God's asking me to be. And what I want us to start to see is this box, right? Having genuine desires that we have in life, having those fulfilled and having the pursuit of those being fulfilled can look very different. And here's what I mean. It can look like me genuinely wanting those things. And it can look like me believing that I am in a place where I'm needing those things. Okay? I want a girlfriend, I need a girlfriend. I want a boyfriend, I need a boyfriend. I want a new car, I need a new car. I want that promotion, I need that promotion. Here's the thing I want to say. Those are very different things. Those are very different approaches to the same things. Again, we're not talking about legitimate needs. We're talking about things that we kind of want in life. Right? There's a big difference between wanting and needing. You say, Ryan, well, what is the difference? Like, how do you break it down a little bit? Here's how we might start to put some skin on this thing. When I want something, we're going to approach that thing with an open-handedness, right? An open-handedness like this. We're going to say, man, if I receive this, I'm going to keep a loose grip on that. I would love to have that, but I'm going to keep it open-handed. I'm not going to squash that. I'm not going to cling to it. I'm going to have an open-handed approach to it. When I'm needing something, I need that thing to happen. I need that relationship. I need it to go the way that I want it to go. There is a desperate tone in me. There's a desperate posture in me that I have to make this happen, and you have to do the thing that I want you to do. And if you don't do it, there's going to be a problem here. And I begin to put a pressure on that thing that is a little bit overwhelming. And we all kind of know how this works. And a lot of times that this forms in a set of expectations, right? Where I have something in my mind, and if I just want it, I'm kind of chill, relaxed about it. If I need it to happen, get out of the way. You better make it happen, or we're going to have a relational problem. Right? For example, it's Father's Day today, and I really want a Five Guys cheeseburger. I'm just saying, right? And if I want that, and if I'm open-handed about it, like that's a solid desire to have. Nothing wrong with that, right? I'm not in the bad zone yet. If I get to the point where I'm needing it, and I've been there, you know what I mean? I've been there. Come on. And then it starts to get a little bit desperate. If you get a little hangry, watch out, right? Because now you're not meeting my goal. You're blocking my goal. And when we block goals, anger happens, right? And so watch out. And we're just playing with this, talking about a cheeseburger, have fun. But we know in real life, man, this gets like really interesting really quick. Because when you don't give me, they got the promotion instead of me, when you blocked my goal, you became my enemy. When you got the thing that I wanted to have, you got my jealousy. It starts to get interesting like really, really fast. Because there's a desperation to it. I need it. Not just want it. It's not just a healthy desire, healthy goal. It's a desperate thing that I need to play out. And whether that's a relationship or a material item or just even my position in a relationship, it looks very, very different. Right? Big difference between needing and wanting. It looks like me demanding rather than offering a request. Last week we talked about offering our requests to God. God invites us to do that. Don't be anxious about anything, but by prayer and petition, present your requests to God. Right? And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Present your requests to God. Is it okay to have requests? Yes. Is it okay to have a healthy desire for things? Yes. Is it okay to want to change your position? It's fine. It's very different than saying, this is going to happen. You are going to do what I want you to do. And I'm demanding this of life and of the people around me and of God. And if it doesn't happen, get out of the way. That's very different. And we can feel it, and we can see it. And when it happens in a relationship, we can feel it. Here's another one. When I want something in life, when I want a relationship, when I want a material item, when I want a goal to happen, I'm able to sit back and genuinely, with joy and gratitude, enjoy that thing. Able to enjoy it. Right? To sit back and enjoy it. When I need something to happen, what happens is I cling to it. I cling to it. This isn't just a thing to be enjoyed, a thing to find a little bit of delight in, a thing to thank God for and to be generous with and to offer even to others when it makes sense. This is something now that I'm clinging to with an iron grip. No one will take this from me. This is mine. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a vastly different thing. And this is why this is confusing, right? Because the same things, a relationship, a home, a car, a situation in life, you name it, can look open-handed and a thing that I'm interacting with God and using for His glory. I'm genuinely enjoying it. Or it can look pretty serious. It can look desperate and something I'm going to demand. And something I'm going to have no matter what. And something that I'm going to squeeze the life out of in my commitment to having what I want to have. Vastly different things. And here's the thing that I think Paul wants us to catch. There's no joy here. There's fear. There's aggression. There's anger. There's coveting. There's jealousy. There's no joy. Right? Joy is what happens when I move this way. And I don't know about you, but I often can start here and then over a little bit of time start to move over here. Starts with as a gift, and then over a while I'm like, I really like this gift. I'm going to hold on to this one forever, right? I'm going to hold with the death grip on this thing. And I think we probably all have recognized that that's happening. Somehow Paul learned this lesson that I feel like I'm still learning. Is he said, I've learned how to live in this lane no matter what. No matter what. No matter where I find myself. And you're a thinking person. Some of us are people that like to have goals and a drive in life. And so I've thought this too. I've thought, if I live over here, am I just going to be like a lazy, like whatever happens to me, I'm happy? I don't want to live like that either. I want direction. I want focus. I want purpose. I want to move towards something meaningful. Where's that? That's still 100% available here. But it looks different than when that purpose and that direction and that ambition is with an iron fist and it's got to be my way. And the kids have to perform and you have to do the thing I want you to do. And if you don't do that, then whoa. Versus an open-handedness with them. These are God's kids. This is God's house. This is the car that God gave me to drive for this season. This is God, the spouse that God has given me. This phase of life of singleness is a phase that God has set me into. I can find joy in any circumstance with that kind of mindset, and I can still move towards great requests, great ambitions of God in this lane. The key, I believe, that Paul is pointing us to is just to keep it open-handed. God, if you want that, I want that. If you don't want that, I don't want that. I'm not waging war with him because there's something about this lane that puts far too much pressure on this box. Because this lane is seeking to find something here that this box is unable to provide. Right? When I go to get that accomplishment, I want the thing to happen. What I'm really saying is I don't just want the thing to happen, I want an identity because I don't think I'm good enough. I want to show everybody how qualified I am, how significant I am, and that's why I need this to happen. I'm going to come and I want to show this, that we made this accomplishment and achieved these goals and see how legit we are, rather than it being for the purpose that the thing actually exists for. That thing can be freely enjoyed. That thing can be freely offered. Right? Somehow Paul figured this out. I'm learning it. I bet you are too. Here's what's interesting. It's really when we don't need something, we're over here, that we're most prepared to receive it. We're most qualified to receive it. And this isn't a statement, this isn't a prosperity gospel thing where, if you land over here, then God's going to give you all this stuff. I don't think it works like that. I do think when we land over here, we are prepared to manage and steward what God has given us, rather than to think that we're owners of it. That's a good place to be. When we're in a place of wanting, not needing, I'm prepared. I'm prepared for marriage when I don't need a spouse, but I want one. I'm prepared to manage financial resources when I don't need them to be okay. I want to use them for God's glory to advance his kingdom, to provide for the people that he's entrusted me with. That's, by the way, a godly request. It's when I'm really prepared when I don't need it. And there's an irony in that. And it's interesting, but it's powerful and true. Came across this verse this week. Here's what jumped out to me in Psalm 131. The psalmist says this: "My heart is not proud. Lord, my eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. But I have calmed and quieted myself. I'm like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content." Right? The psalmist is writing, he's not saying, I've given up on all pursuits. What he's saying is, I don't need it. Like I don't need it. I don't need it to be okay. I don't need it to have an identity. I don't need it to have significance. It's massive. And I think the key to the whole thing is what Paul said a chapter earlier. He said, whatever is more, right? What is more? I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. I think something about where Paul placed Jesus in his heart and his life that allowed him, when the need thing was getting hot, when he recognized who Jesus was, it made this not that important. Is it important? Yeah. Is it that important? No, man. There's Jesus. I have the big the person I need. I have. Doesn't mean it's wrong to want, not at all. It just means it sits in its rightful place. The heat's taken out of it. Because I'm satisfied here, I don't need this. Sure, I'd love for that to happen. God knows that. He invites me to request to him. And the things that he's given me today, whatever situation I'm in, I want to rejoice in those as I request for the next step. Paul says, here's the secret to contentment. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And he recognizes that this equation is super difficult. Super difficult. That over and over, at least has been true in my life, over and over things start in this lane and they drift this way. And over again, I've got to choose to open back up and release and look up and get proper perspective over and over again. A lot of you guys don't know, you don't know my story 100%. It wasn't always the plan for me to be here at this church. Some of you know that, some of you don't. I used to be at another one of our campuses. We have 8 campuses here at Grace. I was there for a long time. And I had a thought and a plan and a vision of how I thought God should use my life. And I was pretty certain I needed it to play out that way. And what happened was, it's a long story, but this campus was in a place where they needed some help, genuinely. The leader had disconnected, and there was a void. And I knew God was asking me to step into that void for a little while, and I was fine with doing that. I was fine with doing that. I was supposed to be here for a little bit. And I was like, cool, I'll be there for a little bit. And I stayed there for a little longer. And a little longer. And it began to be clear to me that what God was asking me to do was stay here. And I just want you to know, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be here. I love you, right? I didn't want to be here. Well, and it wasn't really about not being here. It was about my death grip on what I had determined I needed. That's what it was about. It's going to go this way, and this is my plan, and this is how it's going to work, and I'm going to execute it. And what God was asking me to do is to break that death grip on my agenda, on my plan, on the thing that I thought I know I needed, and to open my hands. And I want you to hear this. The opening of my hands, that process has brought, in some ways, incredible pain, incredible difficulty. What surprised me is that I didn't know that when I opened my hands, what I was going to find was not only incredible difficulty and pain, but incredible joy. Did you hear those stories? Man, I had no idea I was going to meet Ryan Walk, Josh Flates, Alyssa. I had no idea I was going to be in a front row seat to life change, to Josh's story we heard last week. I had no idea. All I knew was that my perspective was going to be the right one, and it was going to work, and I needed it to work. And here's the thing. God loved me enough to break my grip. And what I've found is a joy in a reviving of my spirit that I did not expect. I did not see it coming. It's blown me away. You blow me away. And I don't need this today. I don't need it. But I want it. I want to be where the Lord is. I want to be where he's going to use me. And I want joy. And I wonder today, I wonder if you asked yourself maybe the same question. What is it you think you need today? If you looked internally, is there anything that has just become so important that it has to happen? And no matter what, it's going to happen. And there's a desperation, and there's a commitment, and there's a demand. And I'm going to have my... Is there anything like that? And is it possible that God's asking you to just open your grip and open your posture, that the thing probably isn't the problem? It's the way we hold it. It's the way we hold it. Here's the big deal. The big deal is I genuinely believed that what I saw would bring me joy. My plan executed would bring me what I wanted. What I really struggled with, and sometimes still do, is believing and trusting that there's a God who sees more and knows better, that there's a Father whose voice I can trust to lead me, and he'll always do it. He'll lead me into joy over and over and over again. And he'll love me enough to help me release it, to break my grip, open my hands, that I might receive rightly the blessings that he wants to put into my life. What do we need today? What do you need? What do you need to release today? And what might God do that might surprise you with joy and contentment and peace and blow your mind in an adventure you never expected? As the band comes out, I'd love for us to wrestle with that. As we sing, praise, worship God for who he is and what he's done. Would you pray with me? Father, today we want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for your unending patience with me. God, I feel like I have to learn this one a lot over and over again. God, would you help me to believe that your thoughts truly are higher than mine and your ways they're better. That in your presence is the fullness of joy. God, give us the courage today to trust, to release our control, our grasping, our clinging to the things of this world, to the things that we think we need, that we might gain you more and more. Lord, help us with this today. Help us to trust, to know that you're good, that you're a good Father, that loves us and will take care of us always. Meet us here.